CMEP's Director of Government Relations and Advocacy, and I am so glad that you could be with us today. We are welcoming on our webinar Mr. Bassam Nasser. Bassam is joining us from Gaza, where he serves as the Gaza Field Manager for Catholic Relief Services. He has been in that position since 2010. And in that role, he manages the responsibility for working with local partners in support of CRS's awarded grants and supervises all program staff working in the Gaza field office. Before joining CRS, Mr. Nasser worked with the Civic Engagement Program, USAID CEP ARD, as a grant management specialist and with the Office of Transitional Initiatives. Mr. Nasser is a Hubert Humphrey Fellow at the University of Minnesota and an International Visitor Leadership Program Scholar in the field of emergency programs. He received his education at Tel Aviv University in the field of contemporary Middle East studies. And again, we are just so grateful that you are joining us today, and thank you for being with us. So I wanted to start, thank you. I wanted to start off by just asking you if you could tell us about the work that Catholic Relief Services does in the West Bank and in Gaza, and then about your particular role in that work. If there is an average or typical week, what does that look like for you?
Thank you very much. As you said, I've been with CRS since 2010, and I'm responsible for Gaza programming and operation. And a very typical week or day of Catholic Relief Services aid worker, of course, and in Gaza, of course, includes the follow-up of the work with helping hundreds of thousands of vulnerable families. Now we are helping them with food e-voucher and starting new short employments opportunities for young graduates and job seekers in Gaza. My responsibility also deal with handle challenges of operations related to shortage of electricity, shortage of internet, and sometimes I do give a presentation to young people or interested communities who need to know about CRS programming.
Thank you. So a recent UN report concluded that if there is no change in the status quo of the blockade, Gaza will be completely uninhabitable by 2020. There are, in a recent report, sort of assessing that report, they said it could even be sooner. So do you agree with that assessment? Is it already uninhabitable by many measures, even today?
Well, definitely the situation continue to extreme, and my hope and everybody's else hope is that it stop deteriorating. But definitely tightening the blockade on Gaza will cause serious deterioration, versus the improvement and the release of the blockade will definitely be reflected in growth, prosperity, and clearly better living conditions for the 2 million people living in Gaza. So the hope is that this is not going to continue to deteriorate, but the hope that the blockade is going to be lifted sooner and not later.
And we've been hearing reports, that the amount of access to electricity has been decreasing. Even, it was at one point maybe up to 4 hours a day. Now it's less than that. Can you maybe update us? So currently, is it less than 4 hours a day that most people in Gaza will have access to electricity?
It is around 4 hours, followed with 24 hours cut. It goes up to 30 hours cut, and with the most optimistic scenario, it is 8 hours on, followed with 8 hours off. That was the scenario that continued for almost the last 7 or 8 years, and people somehow adapted their lives to that. Currently, electricity, as you said, it is up to 4 hours, and it is the extreme months of summer for the majority of people. escaping to the sea is more complicated because Gaza is dumping untreated sewage water to the Mediterranean, and that makes about 70% of the Gaza coast not good and dangerous for swimming. Therefore, wherever the Gazans escape, the blockade is covering their lives, and the most shocking problem, as you stated, is the electricity supply currently that affect every aspect of life.
So can you give us some projections about what would happen if there is no change to the status quo by 2020? I mean, already, as you said, you know, this is the hot summer months and the electricity is going from what was 8 hours pretty consistently for the past 7 to 8 years to 4. Just for our audience, since most of us are not as familiar with Gaza, if there is no change, what do you think would be happening?
Well, if there is no change, the majority of the people of Gaza will be in need for the aid workers and the aid organizations to help them. This is not our best case scenario. If there is no change, then the hope for peace in the Holy Land will almost vanish. Therefore, I'm one of those who'd like to see the other side of it. I'd like to see this ending. I would like to see people of Gaza able to travel in and out. People of Gaza, people from Gaza living abroad are able to come and visit their family members. I'd like to see more work opportunities for Gazans inside Gaza, more work opportunities for Gazans outside, and freedom of transportation. I'd like to see freedom of speech, although it is not related to this. And I definitely like to see and feel peace in the Holy Land. This is what I would love to concentrate my effort rather than what is waiting for me if the situation continues to deteriorate. If the situation continues to deteriorate, it's not going to be possible for my 4 children to live a normal life in Gaza. This is definitely not what I hope for.
So have you, in the midst of all of the problems that you've just identified and the various struggles that the people of Gaza face on a daily basis, have you seen any positive developments while you've been working with Catholic Relief Services? We know that Catholic Relief Services is doing a lot of incredible work there in Gaza. So if there have been any positive developments that you'd like to share with folks.
Well, Relief Services has been doing programming in Gaza since 1984. And I am with the organization since 8 years. I've been hearing, and personally, I've dreamed to work with Catholic Relief Services. We have excellent reputation among the community. And I can tell you that with Catholic Relief Services, I have witnessed 2 wars on Gaza and worked with the most vulnerable families in the Gaza Strip. Along that time, I've witnessed hundreds of thousands of people who are excellent examples of resilience, passion, hope, and action to achieve their dreams, improve their living conditions. All the time, improving the living conditions is the short-term objective. This is what we are working on the day-to-day programming. But in the eyes of people, I always saw the resilience, the passion, the hope, the action for dream, the action to achieve, improve the lives of children and siblings. I was and I am a witness of the strong resilience of the people of Gaza, and I think that this is one of the major elements that makes us continue our programming and mostly in that track.
And so do you see that continued resilience? I mean, you work a lot with Gaza youth, and so just wondering, many of the folks that might be watching this have children or grandchildren that are at the stage where they're graduating from high school or getting ready for university. I know that many Gaza youth would love for those study opportunities, but do you still see within Gaza youth a desire to create a better future for their society, to be engaged in civil society work? What is sort of the situation for Gaza youth?
Definitely, I can tell you that we have a job creation program, and we announced online registration. And within 2 months, we received more than 130,000 applications of young people dreaming to hope a short-term employment. We work with young people with entrepreneurship and new initiative for their communities to change their personal life, but mostly to create a new life, new opportunities for them or their families. We work always to help single mothers and female-headed household, as we call them at work. We work with the most vulnerable families, and we look into giving them some of the best short-term opportunities. And we hope that these young people will retain these jobs and will remain in these jobs. The hope are not great, but I can tell you about excellent examples of young people looking for that short employment in order to start their marriage, and they never wanted to start their marriage as unemployed. It's a shame for the majority of them. It's a shame in this society. This society is looking for development, for improvement. Therefore, all what we do is just to give a small opportunity, and we get excellent results. Out of many other countries, Catholic Relief Services started here with the ICT4D, with getting the technology to serve the development. We are getting young people to go to short-term employment, and they use ATM machines for their sign-in, sign-out, the daily work, and also to cash their salary end of the month. The hope is great, and ambitious is great. All what is needed is decisions from the high level, the senior decision makers, to give these people an opportunity. This is all what they are looking for. And with a great team of CRS on the ground, we ourselves feel the same. We were looking for this opportunity. Catholic Relief Services gave it to us, believed in our capacity, and here we are trying to help our community ourselves.
Thank you. So looking toward the future and hopefully a resolution to what is going on, what steps would you like to see be taken in resolving not just the situation in Gaza, but the conflict in Israel and Palestine?
Wow, that's a very big question.
It's a big question, so dream big, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I have to wish for a dramatic shift in the attitudes of leaders. This is where I really wish to see the change. Realistic and courageous view of the history, the present, and the future of the people. I really need to dream, and I do dream about real understanding of the pain, the feeling, the suffering of the others, and sincere readiness for tolerance. I think that there are wonderful laws around the world to follow. South Africa, Northern Ireland. I think there are excellent examples. I think the history also shows excellent examples of tolerance and living together. In short, I really hope to see the change in the attitudes, actions of the leaders, because there is the change, the need for change.
Thank you. So many of the folks that will be watching this webinar are part of Churches for Middle East's network, and so they're US-based folks also interested in some of the ways in which the Israeli-Palestinian conflict come to bear in our political process. So there is one potential act that is being debated right now in the US Congress. It's called the Taylor Force Act. And for those that are not familiar with this act, what it would do would suspend any aid to the West Bank and Gaza unless the US State Department can verify that the Palestinian Authority is taking steps to stop acts of violence against American and Israelis, will publicly condemn and investigate those acts of violence, and will stop payment to individuals who commit such acts or the families of the individual. This will be heard in the Senate soon. This would have obviously some pretty significant potential implications for how aid is distributed in the West Bank and Gaza. So wondering if you think what the impact of this passing would have on the current situation in Gaza.
Well, first, I really hope, sincere hope, that the US will not stop aid to Palestinians. And as aid worker, I hope that aid will not stop for any needed community around the world. And definitely aid not to be stopped based on political reasons. I believe that aid is related to the pain and suffering and shall always be in the hands of decision makers who have the professional capacities to review the need of that specific community. Based on that, I continue to hope that the good faith of the decision makers will help them to see that aid help achieving peace, and aid shall not be a condition against peace. As an aid worker on the ground, I would love to speak to the decision makers and always hope that they will do every effort to assure that aid reaches the people in need. On our side, we will assure that aid will always go to the people in need and not to the decision makers. And as a staff member of Catholic Relief Services, I want to hope that, and I want to say that our mission will always, whether it's in Gaza or in other places, that CRS mission will always end by the end of suffering of people. We never hope that our mission ends because funding is no longer available. Funding shall always be related to the need of that fund and not related to political consideration related to that fund. We want to guarantee that people on the ground, aid workers on the ground, are doing every effort not to mix aid with politics, and especially in a very complicated place like Gaza or Palestine. And on the other hand, I really hope that we will never face a situation where we will have to stop our programming because funding is no longer available.
Thank you. So this concludes the questions that we had developed. And so I wanted, though, to give you the opportunity to share any final thoughts if you had any. Again, many of the people that will be watching this are based here in the US and are looking for ways to be actively taking positive steps to help in the resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And so they're connected with us, but any other final words you would like to share with them?
Well, first I would love to thank every effort to help our work and help to assure that our work continue. And I want to reconfirm our commitment to the standards of work that we have here. We live in difficult working conditions, but our standards continue to be the same, that we provide help based on need and not on creed, that Catholic Relief Services, together with many other aid organizations, local and internationals, are still committed to help the most vulnerable families. I want people who support to understand that under very difficult circumstances, many families have no choice but the aid help that comes from international organizations. And I hope, I pray, and I wish you will continue to pray that this help will not stop very soon until there is a real change in the situation where we will have to stop it, or it is normal that we end our aid and move it to other places.
Thank you. And on behalf of Churches for Middle East Peace, I just wanted to again thank you for taking the time to be with us today, for your work. We are very honored to be able to partner with you and with Catholic Relief Services, and we do really just know that you are doing such important work in an incredibly challenging environment. So we recommend for all of those watching that you follow up, check out Catholic Relief Services materials online to be able to stay up to date. At Churches for Middle East Peace, the situation in Gaza is very important to us, and we are continuing to have that as one of our key advocacy priorities throughout the year. So we will also be updating our website and providing materials, talking with Bassam and other folks at Catholic Relief Services. So we encourage you to check out our resources and to check out Catholic Relief Services resources as well, and to stay involved. And again, thank you so much, Bassam, and please extend our gratitude for you and your colleagues for the work that you are doing.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.